Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. A quick thank you to everybody who's watched the previous video that I uploaded and everybody who has subscribed and shared the video as well. I really appreciate it, and all the DMs that I've been getting as well. Just people connecting, asking more questions, wanting to know more. It's in the spirit of sharing information and passing knowledge along. I'm all about that, and this is what this channel is all about, so I appreciate it very much. So today we're diving into part 2 of the video, and we're just gonna jump straight into it, man. Let's do it.
All right, we going. What a money reside, what a money reside, what a money reside, what a money reside.
So welcome back to part 2. This also took a bit of time to record because I still am getting over that first hurdle of being in front of the camera. I'm also one of those people who don't like the sound of their voice. So to have to sit and edit myself and listen to myself, it's quite, yeah, there's a lot going on there as well. But also a shout out to Tsietsi. He's a South African guy who's also living over here in Japan. And he was just like, you just have to push through the cringe, don't overthink it, and just do it. And eventually you get over it. So I'm going to put a link to his channel in the description. Give him a follow. He's been living in Japan much longer than I have. And he has, some pretty cool experiences, and I think you'll enjoy his videos as well. So let's get into the money stuff. The JET program salary at the moment is 335,000 yen. This translates to about 35,000 rand. In the second year, this will go up to 345,000 yen. And in the third year that you sign up for JET, it will go up to 355,000 yen. So remember, when you join the JET program, you are given the option of renewing your contract to stay 2 years or 3 years, 4 or 5. So 5 is your limit. So each year that you renew your contract, your salary also goes up. I will be looking down my iPad from time to time because it's a long list of things that I have, so don't be thrown off by that. The first thing I'm going to start with is the first year salary. So I arrived in Japan in July 2019 and my salary was 280,000 yen. So keep in mind that the exchange rate was different back then, and so the amounts that I will be sharing with you were the amounts that I was working with at the time. So in 2019 I was getting paid 280,000 yen. From that 280,000 yen, they will be taking away your social insurance premium, your income tax, your residence tax. This is because when you arrive in Japan, you are arriving in July. So during the tax season, they count the income that was made from January of the financial year. So because you are arriving in July, you haven't worked from that January, so you've missed a few months of income that is taxable. That's why ALTs in the first year do not pay residence tax. From the second year onwards, you will pay residence tax each year that you work on the JET program. So when you get paid, your net salary is the one that appears in your bank account. That is the amount you budget on for the rest of the month. So you get paid on the 21st of each month. You get given a payslip, and this will show you all the deductions that were made on your gross salary and will show you how much your net salary is. So I'm going to split my expenses into 3 categories: mandatory expenses, personal expenses, and extra expenses. The first category is mandatory expenses. So these are expenses that I, without a doubt, had to pay every month. My main expenses were rent, gas, electricity, water, food, necessities, and bento. Bento is like the school lunch. Bento just means lunchbox. So I've put the amounts here both in Japanese yen and South African rands. So yeah, those were my monthly mandatory expenses. A note about the electricity: this amount can go up or down depending on what season it is. Japan is one of the hottest and most humid countries that you could ever live in, and people use a lot of air conditioner. So if you're going to be using your air conditioner every single day, you can imagine how much electricity that's going to use. And then in winter as well, same situation applies. Winter is super cold, for me anyways. I know some people enjoy winter. I don't know what for, it doesn't make sense to me, but we shall not judge. So you got to keep that in mind, that this amount doesn't stay the same all the time. It fluctuates and is affected by the season. In the beginning, I relied on the AC a lot because I was still new in the country, just getting used to everything. So I depended a lot on the air conditioner and I got used to it, but over time, I just wasn't comfortable with it. It just didn't feel nice for me. Down the line, after a few years, I bought an electric blanket, and this helps to some degree as well. And then I eventually settled on duvets and other means of keeping warm inside the house, because Japanese homes are your house will be much colder compared to the outside. So you find ways to kind of keep yourself warm. I don't use the AC much these days. I don't like it at all. So I found other ways to keep warm when it's winter, and I found other ways to keep cool in summer. Interesting thing about gas that I should mention as well is that it is controlled by this little device that is usually in the kitchen. So this device controls the hot water in your house, and you can use these buttons to adjust temperature. Some households have gas stoves, and so this whole system also ties into that. And that's the gas amount that you're paying for. So the gas is tied to the hot water and the stove that you will be operating in your household. A note I should make about rent is that my situation was quite different from the usual ALT. Usually ALTs are placed in subsidized housing, and so ALTs end up not having to pay that much for their rent. I know if you live in Tokyo, the rent is significantly high because Tokyo is a very expensive city to live in. So housing is significantly different compared to someone who's living in the countryside. So you've got to keep that in mind. I know in the previous video, I mentioned that when you are applying for the JET program, you get 3 options to list where you would like to live. And if you choose Tokyo, you got to be careful there because your expenses are going to be significantly impacted by that. I know when I chose my 3, I chose places that were very far from the city. I'm a nature lover. I need nature around me. I love the ocean. So my 3 options were based around that criteria. I didn't want to be anywhere near the city. I don't want to see skyscrapers or concrete around me. I needed nature, and I got placed in Shizuoka. Shizuoka is home to Mount Fuji, so I was more than happy with my placement. I had no complaints. I had all the nature I needed. The beach was like 20 minutes away, so I had no complaints about that. My rent wasn't that bad, also because I was the only ALT in that area. So some ALTs get placed in this building. I've heard of people who have like 5 ALTs living in the same building. One is upstairs, the other one is on the 2nd floor, whatever, so they get to be close to each other. In my situation, the area that I was placed in, there wasn't a lot of ALTs, so there wasn't a building where they placed a bunch of us. So at my school, the ALT who I was replacing was staying in an apartment that I was put into. So that's how that came about. I wasn't put into the building like other ALTs were. So my rent wasn't subsidized. I had to pay it straight with no help, nothing. Another thing about food is quite cheap in Japan if you know where to shop, and it's also quite cheap to eat out. I was eating out a lot in those first few months that I got here. I didn't know the ingredients well enough. I didn't know how to cook Japanese food. Or if I wanted to cook something from home, I didn't know where to look for the things because the spices you have at home aren't necessarily available here. You have to like search long and hard sometimes to find an equivalent of something from home. So that was something that came along much later, the longer I lived here. If you go to the convenience store at the 7-Eleven, they have little bento boxes or like ready-made food that people buy that you can just take home and you reheat and you eat that. Another note about school lunch, you have the option of bringing your own lunch to school, or you can sign up for the teachers' daily lunches that they bring. There's a company that the school hires that brings lunch for the teachers every single day, so you can sign up for that, and each day something new. You get a surprise in your bento box, like seaweed, like bamboo, or you can just prepare your own food at home and bring that and eat it. I know some ALTs are placed in like junior high schools or like elementary schools, and they eat with the kids during lunchtime. Like they sit with the kids and they eat with them. Some people enjoy doing that. They enjoy interacting with the kids and just seeing what they bring for lunch every day, and you get to talk to them more and you get to know them outside of the classroom, which is nice. But for me, it's like you spend the whole day talking and you're teaching and you just need to rest your voice. So I always ate in the staff room. You will notice that I have not put down an amount for transport. This is because my school was a 20-minute walk from my apartment, and the girl who I was replacing at the time, she had left her bicycle at the apartment and she gave it to me to use. She wasn't taking it with her when she moved, so she was like, "You're more than welcome, use it." So I did. Unfortunately, the wheel punctured a few days in actually, so I couldn't use it for quite some time. And when I eventually had the money, I bought like a pump to kind of pump the wheel, and that also didn't help. And eventually I had to buy my own bicycle. So I have not put down transport here because I did not have transport costs. So depending on where you are placed, your transport fees might be different to other people. I know some people were placed in a school where they had to teach at 2 locations, so their transport fees were different to someone who might not have to do those things. Some people had cars, so if you have a driver's license, you can apply for a permit here in Japan and you get a car. I think they cover your petrol fees as well. I think you get reimbursed for your petrol fees and whatever else, maintenance and all those things. So every person's situation is different. Like not everyone has the exact same experience. In the JET program, there's a very famous acronym, ESID. ESID stands for each situation is different. So no matter which ALT you ask, it's very rare to find people who are having the exact same experience, the exact same costs, the exact same life, basically. So you always got to remember that whatever situation you're in, there's another person who's got a totally different ESID. I know some people cycle to the train station and they leave their bike at the train station and then they grab a train to go to their school. In that situation, you have to consider bike parking fees. I'm not sure if the school reimburses you on those fees. I'm sure they do. I'm sure they do. Some people walk to the nearest train station and they grab a train from there and go to work. There's many different kinds of situations that are possible. And should you be placed in an area where you will have to take the bus, you will be given a card that looks like this. It's a very nifty, useful thing to have and very easy to use. You just load money, whatever amount that you want to use for that time period, you load it on and you don't have to worry about constantly having to have coins on you to get onto the bus or the train. So that's all the stuff on the mandatory side of things. The second category is personal expenses. So my personal expenses will be different from your personal expenses. The things I have listed might not be on your radar at all. We all don't have the same financial goals. So if you are into beauty, skincare stuff, you go to the gym, you've got your hair appointments, like, going to the hair salon, if you've got to get your Starbucks fix, if you've got dental obligations, braces are in at the moment, if you've got to get your nails done, furnishing your new apartment, Japanese lessons that you'd like to take, got Duolingo memberships, subscriptions that you got to pay for like Amazon, Netflix, Spotify, whatever subscriptions that you've got going on. I don't subscribe to stuff. I don't really have anything to subscribe to that I want, so I didn't have those expenses. Another person might. So you've got to think about those things when you are budgeting. These are just included here to show you how much I have left at the end of the month. So my biggest personal expense was paying for NSFAS. When I got to Japan, I had to pay back quite a lot of money. I think around 160,000 Rand.
Pay back the money!
Around 160,000 Rand. I can't remember exactly. It was just a lot of money. So I had to pay that off. So every month I was paying 100,000 yen towards NSFAS, and this was about 13,000 Rand. It was between 13,000 Rand and 15,000 Rand, depending on what the exchange rate was on the day that I would go pay. So that was my biggest one. A lot of money. A lot of people were asking me, why aren't you traveling? Show us a bit of Japan. Like, what are you getting up to and all that stuff? And I was like, listen, I'm busy with stuff. I can't afford to be traveling right now. I had a timeline to pay off my NSFAS, and so I spent a lot of my first year not traveling. Everybody was out traveling, seeing Japan and stuff, and unfortunately, I was set on a goal and I was very intent on completing it by a certain timeline. So I didn't do any much traveling. Just was there with my cup noodles and my cigarettes and Strong Zero. That was my life. It took me about 10 months to pay off my NSFAS, so yeah, that was out of the way. So my black tax came up to 30,000 yen. 30,000 yen back then was about 5,000 Rand. If you don't know what black tax is, talk to your black friends. Call them up, ask them like, Chomi, what is black tax? Are you paying black tax? And they'll tell you. If you don't have a black friend, there's always Google, of course. So every month after paying my mandatory expenses, I would send money home. The next expense, this was my phone SIM and my pocket Wi-Fi. I didn't have a house Wi-Fi in my apartment, so I didn't have that set up for me when I was arriving. So I had to figure it out by myself. And what ended up happening was that I paid for two separate companies for Wi-Fi and for my phone, my actual SIM card. And that totaled to 14,500 yen per month. This was around 2,000 Rand. Of course, now I'm not paying that amount. I'm on a much cheaper, much better deal because I know better. And I actually found the pocket Wi-Fi that I used to use, and it looked like this. Very small, very nifty little thing. And it does what it does. It's a pocket Wi-Fi. It fits into your pocket, and I basically took it everywhere with me. Wherever I went, it was there in my pocket, and I just had to turn it on when I wanted Wi-Fi access, and when I wasn't using Wi-Fi, I just turned it off. The next expense that I had, I can't believe I used to spend this much on cigarettes. So I was a huge smoker back then. I started smoking 2010. Yeah, 2010 was when I started smoking, and I only quit around 2020. So it was a very long habit that I upheld. And I was very determined every month to get my cigarette fix, so that contributed quite a lot to my personal budget. And now we're gonna get to the extras. These expenses aren't set in stone, they change every month. I would say my mandatory and personal expenses were the only two categories that were consistent. So examples, the first thing I bought was a bicycle. This was 20,000 yen. The next thing I put aside money for was entertainment. So entertainment was here and there. I never really went out to places that required me to pay too much money, like entrance fees for something, or I don't know, whatever expense needed to be paid to go to an event or whatever. I limited myself to those. I didn't go to much of those. I would go out for drinks or go out for dinner with friends when I could. And on the times that I couldn't go, I'll just be like, hey, I'm broke, I can't go this time, maybe next time or whatever, and that'll be that. Sometimes if there was a really big need to go out and stuff, my friends would pay for me and like just cover me for the night. Because going out is quite expensive here, because you got to get a train, you got to get a Shinkansen, all that stuff adds up. Drinks are very expensive in Japan, so you got to put money aside for that. And then later down the line, I also bought like electronics. This included a phone, a laptop. I bought a camera as well. So the camera was around 60,000 yen. And my phone at the time was 90,000 yen. My laptop was 120,000 yen. When I came to Japan, I had my little iPhone 6. Pretty good phone, actually. I still have it. But when I was teaching, I needed to plan my lessons in a more efficient way. So I had to upgrade my phone. So I got a new phone, and of course the laptop thing, because you know how Apple is. And the last thing was clothing. So when I packed my stuff for Japan, I wasn't quite prepared. I packed very light, of course. I didn't want to bring too much of the things I had. I didn't want to bring too much over. So I packed very light. But when you get here, you don't realize just how different the climate is. Because when we leave South Africa, it's in the middle of winter, you know. It's July, it's winter in South Africa. And of course, you're not prepared for what's waiting for you on the other side. And the second you land, the humidity just smacks you in the face. I've never experienced anything like it. Like, I knew what humidity was when I moved here. I think around 2015. I went to Tanzania, and that was the first experience I ever had of what humidity is, to understand what it is. So when I got to Japan, I had no idea just how intense. It's worse than Tanzania. It's worse than anything I've ever experienced. Imagine it's like opening, you know, when you're baking and you open the oven to like take out the muffins or whatever you're baking, and the heat from the oven just comes up and like it smacks you in the face. Multiply that heat by at least 20. At least 20. I'm not even kidding. Humidity here it's a lot. Believe me when I say. So when I got here with all the clothing that I had to basically chuck it out and buy a whole new set of clothes. Not just for like daily living, but for work as well. Because I didn't know what kind of situation I was stepping into. Is it formal wear all the time? Because I know the Japanese staff, they wear ties and it's a blazer every day. So I don't know if that was like mandatory for me, you know? So I had to buy a lot of stuff. I had to basically redo my entire wardrobe. So month by month, I was spending money on clothing, slowly sifting out the old stuff and bringing in the new stuff, and just like, you know, getting used to the climate around me. I didn't buy all of these things all at once. Like, it was just month by month, month by month, month by month. Okay, and then going on to the second year, my expenses were a little bit different because I now had paid off my NSFAS. So in the second year, my salary went up. I got paid 300,000 yen. That was my gross salary. After all the deductions were made, net salary came to 250,000. Mandatory expenses stayed the same. Nothing really changed. I did stop ordering bento from the school. I kind of like got into the hang of cooking more at home, and I started preparing my own lunches. The personal category, I wasn't paying for NSFAS anymore, so I had an extra 100,000 now lying around. Also quit smoking, so the cigarette budget was also out of the window, and I didn't really buy any more clothing after that, so the clothing also got scratched off from the personal. So it was just basically the black tax. I was still paying that 30,000 yen every month. The Wi-Fi also stayed the same. So the major things that got added on to the personal budget were the gym. I started going to the gym more, and this was mostly due to the COVID that had started. Like, it was COVID era that time, and you know, you had to find a way to keep sane. So yeah, a lot of a gym membership was about 8,000 yen. And I also got into skincare stuff because my skin, when I got here, was very reactive to the climate here. Like, it took a while for my skin to get used to. Even my hair was very brittle all of a sudden when I got here. I don't know what's in the waters, but yeah, my hair was just suffering and my skin was just a mess. So a sudden budget appeared for skincare, and that was 15,000 yen per month. Skincare is expensive, guys. And I also started traveling more. Of course, I didn't advertise it because we weren't allowed to be traveling at this time. But the introvert in me was so happy. Hey, wherever you go, just emptiness. Well, it wasn't empty. There were still people, like a few people out and about. But of course, we had to like keep the distance, the social distance. I don't like crowds in general. I never have. Unless it's a concert, of course, then you can't avoid that.